They say I might as well face the...
Hello and welcome to Game of Moans, where we are looking back on Game of Thrones one episode at a time and dissecting them just like one of the many corpses that seem to pile up on a weekly basis. I am Chris Bolton, with me as always the mountain Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And this week, since it's our fourth episode, we're looking at Season 1, Episode 4, Cripples, Bastards and Broken Things. It's right there in the title. There you go. Bastard count for the week is up one already.
Yeah, it's a little on the nose as titles go, I'll give it that, but that's kind of what you expect from this show, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I like the title. As I've mentioned before on this show, this is the first time I've rewatched, and I've not even really gone back with this show and sort of researched the titles and that sort of thing. So these are all kind of coming up to me as we're watching them, and obviously I'm reading them to write on my notes. As titles go, I thought that was quite good. And
to be honest, it's one of the only ones I remember from the first series without actually going back and rewatching.
Yeah, and obviously it basically references a line from Tyrion very early on into the episode, which we'll get to as we get to it. But yeah, for those playing along at home, the bastard count is up one already for this week. Okay,
probably up about 4 by now.
Yeah, we haven't dropped the C-bomb yet. That's not in the title, so...
Yeah, well, no, give it a chance.
Yeah, I'm sure we won't disappoint. So, dive in straight into it, I guess. Then no foreplay this week. I've got my box set now. I've got nothing to report back on, apart from the fact that new development. Actually, I do have something to report back on, I guess. New development for those following my adventures in trying to watch this fucking show. My Blu-rays are damaged, or either my Blu-rays are, or my DVD is. Sorry, my Blu-ray player is. For about 20 seconds of this episode, I got nothing but artifacted garbage. I was able to fast forward through it, didn't lock the player up or anything like that, so it was cool. I probably just missed a couple of lines of dialogue. But if there's gaps in my knowledge for this episode, that's what it is. That's what you get for buying cheap Blu-rays from eBay, kids. So let that be a lesson to me, I suppose.
Lesson learned.
Yeah. I guess so.
We'll see what you missed. We'll see if there's anything important happened. Probably not, to be honest.
No, it was towards the end of a scene. I really don't think I've missed anything. If I thought it was anything major, I would have gone and bought the episode on Amazon, or tried it in the PlayStation, because maybe that would have worked. But anyway, I think it's fine.
We'll work it out.
Yeah, of course, this is the point where you can tell me that literally fucking anything happens in that 20 seconds.
Well, you saw The Martians, right?
No, this must have been just before the Martians landed then. I thought I could remember that.
There was like a 12-second bit of just like spaceship battle. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, see, I thought I remembered Martians somewhere along the line. Damn it.
Would have made as much fucking sense as later episodes.
Yeah, that's the best bit, right? That's the one where they've all got like 73 tits and 10 cocks. And they just...
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, they come down and have a big gangbang, because that would be in keeping with this show, really, wouldn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Creation myth.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess dive in.
That out of the way.
Yeah, that out of the way. Let's dive into the episode. Dive in straight. Go on.
I was just going to introduce the episode. It says titled "Cripples, Bastards and Broken Things," written by Brian Cogman and directed by Brian Kirk. So the showrunners had fuck all to do with the creative on this episode, and it shows, I think, as a big step change from last week.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I've got to be honest. That we said that last week's was quite slow. It was quite a slog. I didn't feel that with this episode, even though probably as little happened.
Yeah, it's actually when, spoiler alert, I guess, guys, for when we get to the end of the episode. But yeah, I say almost exactly that in my notes. This is an entirely pointless filler episode, mostly.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, but it's very well written. It nips along nicely. There's some excellent dialogue, lots of nice character beats again. Not as many as last week, to be fair, but those that are work very well.
And it introduces two of my favourite characters, actually.
Yes, yeah, we get introductions of characters, one of which I had completely forgotten actually shows up this early on, and so I was very surprised to see them, but we'll get into that when we get to it.
I think I know who that one is, but we'll get to that one.
Yes, probably not one of your two favourites, just an other character.
We'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, straight into it then. No beating around the bush to say that not only is there no foreplay on this episode from us, there's no foreplay on this either, because here comes the fucking three-eyed raven immediately, as soon as we start.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember this episode first time around when I watched it, and I was only sort of half watching it because I had it on my laptop and I had the PlayStation on the TV, and I was sort of half paying attention. And I looked down and saw Bran walking with a bow and arrow. What the fuck? What have I missed? And he's following the three-eyed raven around the castle, around Winterfell, and yeah, confused the living shit out of me until he then woke up and I realised I needed to pay attention.
Yeah, of course we don't actually know what the three-eyed raven is or would come to symbolise at this point.
No, it's just a freakish, Springfield-esque three-eyed animal.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It's like Blinky.
Yeah, so straight away we're starting to sow some seeds here in this episode. I quite like this. They just kind of throw it in there and you go, as you say, it's a bit freaky, you're like, what the fuck's that? And then it's gone and we don't see it again for the rest of the episode. One thing I will say though is we do then lead on to a couple of scenes with Bran, and since he's woken up he's just become an absolute little prick.
He's a tween, isn't he?
Yeah, like just a real sulky. I mean, okay, you got to give the kid some credit. He's lost the use of his legs, but then
he checked out the fucking window.
Yeah, if he wasn't being a little perv in the first place, then he'd still have the use of his legs as well.
Yeah, so, I don't think that's what he was up there doing. I think that just kind of happened. He happened to find two people having a good old time, and as a result, got thrown out a window for it. I think on balance, it's not really fair on him.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's
punishment doesn't really fit the crime.
No, I would agree there, but I have been thinking about this because I was wondering, like, is it, was he asking for it? And yeah, it's not like he knew that they were fucking in there, but it's also not like he tried to avert his gaze or apologise or
get out of the way.
No, he stood at the point once he's realised what's going on. At the point where he then doesn't disengage, that's where he becomes a perv. So he was perving, but he is a tween boy.
The age is, well, he's only 10, isn't he? So I mean, I don't know whether adolescence kicks in that early up north in this fictional world. Maybe he didn't know what the fuck was going on.
I mean, if it's like the North, they're probably on their second child by 10, aren't they? They need that child benefit, dude.
Very true. I don't think they had child benefit in Winterfell.
No.
The post office was shut. They couldn't collect the gyro.
Yeah, probably. Plus, I don't hear any Scouse accents actually. So yeah, I guess.
Very true. And there's no cast areas to steal, so they must all be doing something else.
I guess you steal horseshoes, I guess, and leave the horses up on bricks.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So
we'll have to watch out for that in future episodes.
Yeah. So yeah, Bran's just a little prick. Just and even like he's being a prick because I've even written down that he's even feels like a prick when he's talking to Theon. And anytime somebody can out prick Theon, they are a real prick.
I've got to be honest. Like Theon came in like the big fucking I am. I have to do this, therefore you have to do that. No, who the fuck are you? You're nobody.
You're a slave, is what you are.
Yeah, he comes in, he insults old Nan, which I've got a bit of a soft spot for her because she died before she saw any of the shit. But he comes in, he's aggressive, he's abusive, and basically says, "No, I'm not putting up in your shit. You'll come in with me." Just like the piece of shit he will go on to become in later episodes. And to be honest, yes, okay, Bran was being a cunt, but I think Theon kind of deserved it because he's Theon.
Yeah, I mean, Theon always deserves it, but still, just in general here, Bran is a cunt to pretty much everyone. And there you go, that's the second one of the episode.
That's two, yeah.
Mark broke the cherry, though, just for reference.
This week, yeah this week.
But then, look, it's all good because, see, I thought this happened earlier on. I thought this happened like episode 2, but we've had to wait till episode 4. But never mind, because here comes Hodor, and suddenly everything is much better about the scene. So,
yes.
Because any time Hodor's in a scene, it's always great because he's just awesome. And I'll have nothing said against him until we get to some developments with Hodor much later on where that may turn into a 2-part episode.
Or a really long one.
Yeah. But at this point, he's nothing but just sweet old innocent Hodor.
Yeah. I mean, my problem with Hodor at this point is that it's kind of like looking in a sort of futuristic mirror when the kids have driven me fucking insane and all I can say is my own name. And I'm grey and fat and just want to die.
Well, as I said way back at the start of the show, I was tempted to go with Hodor instead of the Mountain, but I didn't want to do you a disservice by calling you retarded. So, is retarded politically correct, or should I be saying something else?
Fuck no. Absolutely not.
I don't know. Fuck it.
For listeners of any show we've ever done, we're not politically correct. We will apologise.
No, I mean, no offence.
Because we don't learn from it.
I mean, no offence by that whatsoever. That's just the word that came out. If that has some negative connotations, I am very sorry. What is the correct word? Mentally challenged?
Challenged?
I guess.
Impaired?
Impaired, maybe?
Backward?
Well, backward is definitely politically incorrect like that. If I can't have retarded, you definitely can't have backward.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Hang on. So we've had retarded. We've insulted Scousers. Oh,
fuck Scousers! I don't care about that. I do genuinely care if I've been offensive to whatever the politically correct term is. I'm about to say if I've been offensive to retarded people.
I don't know what the proper term is. It's fictional. He can be, whatever.
Simple? Is that worse?
Yes.
I don't know. I
have no idea. I'm guessing.
Please educate us, listeners.
I don't know. How do people work? How do you decide arbitrarily which is better and worse? Is retard worse than simple? Let us know, folks. We don't fucking know, clearly.
Yeah, if it wasn't that to get taken down in seconds, I'd suggest we run a Facebook poll. I don't think that'll end well. Yeah, I mean, thing is, there are so many different terms for the various things that can cause this kind of impairment, which would maybe then become the name of the person. So, as a catch-all, I'm sticking with retarded. I'm sorry, but I am.
Okay, and to be fair, given what causes this particular retardation, if we're going for retarded, then I don't really think there's a technical term for it.
No, I don't think there is either. So it's either.
I mean, we've got like 4.5 years to find out what.
We either need to go with simple or retarded.
We can't go with simple because I just want to do the meerkat noise.
Simples. Okay. Well, anyway, that's Hodor. Well, from now on, we shall just refer to him as Hodor. That's the easiest thing.
God damn it! Call him by his name.
He is a Hodor. That's what he is. So yeah, and then we kind of. We get into this scene then between Bran and Tyrion once again, just like the previous conversation he's had with Jon about being a bastard, drops some absolute truth bombs on Bran. There's a whole exchange where Bran says, "I'm not a cripple," and Tyrion returns his volley with, "Then I'm not a dwarf." Also, therefore, clearing up the question posed by us on another podcast as to whether he was a dwarf or a midget. Tyrion is a dwarf. It's the
again. Apologies if that's apparently offensive.
Well, I think we knew that was because we called it at the time. But look, Tyrion calls himself a dwarf, so that's it. That's canon. That's what he is. He's a dwarf. We can. I
mean, Tyrion has all the way through. To be fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, realistically, the more important insight there is that we've not met Tywin yet.
No.
But we've had lots of allusions to the fact that that Tywin doesn't approve of Tyrion. I think in episode 1, where Jon says to Tyrion, "Hang on, get out, Jess, get out, downstairs, get out." Cut that bit again.
Oh no, you totally have to leave that in. That was Mark's daughter, everyone.
Yeah, sorry about the interruption. She should be in bed. She should be asleep, but she's being a little shit. So we haven't met Tywin yet, and we've had two allusions to him now. One in the first episode where he's talking to Jon about Oni being a bastard, and Jon says to him, "What do you know being a bastard?" And the response is, "All dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes." So you immediately get, before you've even heard of Tywin Lannister, you get this utter disappointment and contempt for his son. And then I think this is one of the most poignant references before we meet him in, I think, the next 2 or 3 episodes, whereby again Tyrion just sees fit to say, "Well, look, no, my father disapproves of me because of the way I was born. There's nothing I can do about it. It's not my fault. I am the way I am. But because of that, I'm a permanent disappointment. But if you say you're not a cripple and I'm not a dwarf and everything's hunky dory and everything's fine with the world," and it's such a throwaway part of that comment. The important part is I'm not a dwarf, because it belittles what Bran is saying.
Yes,
but it's a very opportune piece of character building that we at this stage, because we haven't met the bloke, we don't think anything of it. And when he pops up then in 2 or 3 episodes' time, it then starts to take a bit of precedence. And the fact we meet him with Tyrion, you kind of see where he's coming from. That he's not exaggerating, that Tyrion is treated like a piece of shit that he's stepped in.
Absolutely. And this is just another example, and I'm really realising it. I was aware of it in later seasons anyway, but in rewatching where we're doing this world building now and these character buildings, I'm realising just how much of an MVP Tyrion is for this writing team. Like, any time that we need extensive amounts of backstory or we need a character beat, Tyrion just handles it as a character, and Peter Dinklage as an actor, putting those words out there, just handles it with absolute aplomb. There is no, he just goes straight over this stuff and throws it out there. It doesn't. Whenever somebody else does it, it feels stunted, to say the least.
Ironically,
ironically, but Tyrion just seems to be able to throw this stuff out there and let it go. We get the brief scene where he details that he's designed a saddle for Bran to be able to ride a horse. Once again, showing him to be the absolute best Lannister in terms of his relation with others. And then we move on to this scene between him and Theon, where again we get all of Theon's backstory in one big hit. In one scene, we get told everything we need to know about Theon and why he's such an absolute cock. And it's all handled by Tyrion again, and it somehow miraculously manages to not seem like a huge unwieldy chunk of exposition. I don't know how Peter Dinklage does this, but he's absolutely gifted with exposition. He really is.
I think part of it's the writing, but part of it's the delivery. That we talked last week about Jaime being the master of the backhanded compliment. Theon is the master of the veiled put down.
Yes.
It's like, I'm talking to you in a way you probably don't even realise I'm being a cock. You probably don't realise how much of a bastard I'm actually being. Because what I say is true. It might be a little bit hurtful, but it's true, and you know it's true. But beyond that, beyond the surface of that, I could be tearing you a new one and you wouldn't know, because you'd just be smiling and nodding, thinking you're being clever and keeping up with me.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we get a lot of this in the first couple of seasons, and as he grows in importance, he does it less, he pontificates less, and he starts making sense, which is unfortunate. But in these early seasons, these little speeches he makes and these little interactions he has, which seem so trivial at the time, are absolutely perfect, and they're absolutely spot on.
And we get so much exposition out of them. I mean, I've written here in our notes, like he's our narrator at this point. Anytime we need to be brought up to speed quickly, they use Tyrion. He is narrating the story. You know, he is very much like, you're so and so, and this is why you're here, and here's all the backstory. But it just never feels forced. It's really excellent, to be fair. There is a lot of good stuff in this episode. As I say, I don't think there's actually going to be too much moaning at all this week.
You say that.
I've got some stuff, but. I've got some stuff, but in general, this episode is pretty good for stuff like that. And then we get an introduction of another great character. We get Sam showing up at the wall.
Sam was the first of my favourites that I mentioned earlier on. It's just really well handled. He turns up, he's completely out of his depth, he's completely lost, and within seconds he's having the living shit kicked out of him.
And as much as, I too like Sam as a character, I think it's impossible not to like him, because he is...
he's infectious. He's like chlamydia or something.
He's just this huge, lovable oaf of a character. But what he does really well, and obviously... having not read the books, especially on a first watch, he felt to me like he was very much a foil for Jon, and he does that really well in these early seasons, because when Sam shows up and starts getting bullied, it brings the best out in Jon. It shows us this leader, and it shows us this guy who's... Because by association then, Jon chooses to side with him by association then, that brings out insults towards Jon, and you get the whole bastard thing thrown in, and they're like, they're lover boys, and all of this stupid, immature stuff, but Jon, being Jon, is tough enough to wear that on his sleeve, and he does, much like Tyrion's advised him to do, start to wear his problems like armour, and just rise to the occasion continually. I mean, John defending Sam in this scene is just absolutely boss. He's just like where they get like people to square off against John, and he just looks them straight in the eye and says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he is just so quietly confident. It's amazing.
Yeah, even before that, I mean, when you get Alistair Thorne is saying, no, right, if you want to stand up for him, I'll give you a problem for it, and he's just like, I don't care because it's right, and it's this moral compass which comes up time and time again with John. And I know we talked last week about where the Jon Snow character started to really sort of find his feet, and this is just sort of an extension of that, where he's like, okay, you can beat them. You can set hundreds of them on me. I don't care. I'm doing what's right. I'm standing up for somebody who can't stand up for himself. I will deal with him separately. And later on, they have a conversation on top of the wall, whereby John sort of tries to say, look, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to fight back. Otherwise, you are going to die. But at the moment, that's the least of my concern. My concern is they're going to kill him unless I stop them.
Yeah, I love this iteration of Jon Snow. This character is the one that really loses his way the most for me towards the end of the show, and it's why I got so annoyed, because my buy-in to Jon Snow at this point in these early seasons is massive. I am fully on board with Jon and Jon's story, and every time something like this happens, I'm even more like, yeah, go on, Jon. He's my boy at this point. He kind of is learning to be Batman at this point, and there is an amazing Batman moment with Jon Snow later in this episode, which I'll bring up when we get to it. But it literally is a Batman moment, and that definitely really is. It feels like that's where his character's going. In these early seasons, like no parents, shunned by the family that he does have in this point. So literally an orphan essentially, although highborn. Because he's coming from Winterfell, so he has all the privilege that he needs, but chooses to turn his back on that and just defend the world, and use all of the rage and everything inside him and channel it outward. He is Batman. But anyway, this is the point where I started to get the horrible artifact in towards the end of this scene.
Right, okay.
So if he did take on like 70 guys, I missed that.
Yeah, it was only 32, it's fine.
Yeah. We then move on to some Dany and Viserys stuff. Viserys still an utter cockwomble.
Yeah. Actually, so before we go,
I really can't wait for him to get his comeuppance.
Yeah, I mean, before we go into that, there's a really nice bit at the end of that scene. Actually, what you did miss was Sam thanks Jon for sticking up for him, and you get this sort of impression that obviously Sam is there. He's desperate he thinks he's found an ally, but he doesn't want an ally. He wants a friend, and because he's highborn as well. He's been brought up now properly. He wants to do the right thing, so he feels he owes Jon. So he thanks him, and Jon's just like, no, whatever. Don't make me do that again. But again, just because of what Jon needs Sam to do, not because he doesn't appreciate it. It's just because if I keep on saving you keep on thanking me, nothing's going to change, and you're going to die. But it's a really heartfelt thing from Sam, and I think it's the start of that relationship which builds throughout this episode and then through the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I missed that, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's the only bit you missed.
Yeah, but yeah, then we move on to Viserys just being an utter cockwomble still, and then we get this scene where Dany and Jorah are both riding on horses and having a conversation, and it's like, all of a sudden somebody slipped the director like a load of ease or something, because like there are cuts all over the fucking place. It's car crash editing at this point. Like, we're jumping all over the line. We're practically going 360 degrees around. We're going from nice tight close-ups out to wide shots, back into two shots, and it seems to cut on every single line.
Yeah.
It's nuts, and it's not something this show has done in the past.
Or the future. I don't remember doing it that often after this either.
We even get, for a little while, they start experimenting with this kind of horse tracking cam, where it's as if you're in the saddle of the person talking. So like you're in Dany's saddle talking to Jorah, and you get the movement of the horse, and you're in tight on his face, and it actually made me feel quite sick. It's horrible, and I don't ever remember seeing it before, which suggests to me that it doesn't happen too much more,
No.
and I hope it doesn't, because it looks like amateur hour.
It does. Now, I'm wondering, actually, thinking of where it is and who's in it. There was an interview with her fairly recently where they were talking about the end. No, they were talking about the last season, and she was saying that she said that she had an aneurysm midway through season 1, and I'm wondering if this was them trying to cut around her not being there.
Potentially, that would make a lot of sense.
I mean, I may be making that up, as I know she did have a very serious brain injury during season 1, and another one, I think it was between season 1 and 2, or between seasons 2 and 3, which almost killed her. But I'm wondering if this may be a case of they had to cut around her just to get the shot done.
Possibly, because it certainly feels like they are just working with what they've got. There is no logical reason for them to cut the way they cut. It doesn't fit the story. It doesn't fit any motivation. It's not even a particularly exciting or interesting conversation to be given this much life.
But not only that, it doesn't fit the editing style or the model that we see in the show either. So I'm wondering if it might be something to do with that. I might be completely wrong. And if anybody who was there happens to know the answer, please let us know. But get in touch. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make, as an artistic choice, it doesn't make any sense, because it's never been done before. It's never repeated.
No, and it's entirely unmotivated, as I say. It just doesn't.
And it's fucking ugly.
Yeah, it really, really is. So we then move on, and we get tits, or sort of tits. We don't really get a lot of them. We get sort of tits from a side perspective, and again we start to get some exposition, but now we're getting it from a whore with the tits out.
Yeah, no, I'm not being funny. Of all the people who are in this show who get their kit off and get them out, this secondary character, who I'm not sure you ever see again after this episode, is the only one who gets to cover up.
Yeah, it's weird, that, isn't it?
What the fuck? Who wrote her contract that was so much better than all the others?
Yeah, unless, again, there was a bizarre artistic choice there of like, oh, we're going to try and be all softcore and we'll hide her nipples.
Why?
I don't know.
Given what's come before it and what will come after it.
Yeah, and then we get this. I mean, we get the information that the Iron Throne was forged by the breath of a great dragon.
Yeah.
Which just seems like some cool shit at this point, but hearing it now, having seen this show play out,
yeah,
that's quite nice.
Yes,
doesn't excuse any events that may happen that are related to it in the finale.
No, but I mean, it's a beautiful callback in the finale.
But it's there. As I've said several times, a lot of these problems that people have in the finale have been there since the beginning, and there it is.
Yeah,
there
and
you go.
Mean, let's say no. We get, there's so much talk of the Iron Throne all the way through the show, but you don't hear too much about it, about where it came from, and this is probably the only time where you hear how it was constructed, how it was forged, and so the mythos and the legend behind it. I can't remember if it was in one of the early episodes or in a later one this season, because I have watched ahead, where Daenerys is talking about the throne of a thousand swords and how in her brain it must have been so tall because a thousand swords would be miles up or whatever else, and it's just part of this mythos that then after season 1 I don't think you get anymore. Nobody really talks about the Iron Throne apart from to name check it.
Yeah, it's almost a character in this early season of its own, isn't it? The Iron Throne.
Yeah, and like we talked in, I think it was episode 2, we talked about Winterfell seeming like a character, and King's Landing later on as well. And yeah, the Iron Throne is probably the only other real example of that. The only other one coming close, I think, would be the Wall. But it's this sort of mythic, almost a peripheral character in itself, whereby it's something that everybody wants to be a part of. They don't want to sit on it. They want to be the Iron Throne, effectively.
Yes.
Because of what it represents. And so this is it's a fairly talky scene. It doesn't really go anywhere. But yeah, you just get this nice bit of story behind it that just sort of sets up for what will be.
Well, it is a talky scene, and it doesn't really go anywhere, but it does raise some weird fucking questions. Question number 1:
Right.
Why does Viserys have a scar over his nipple?
That's why they took the third one off.
How did it get there, and what is the point? Because that's being applied, that scar. Like, somebody's made a decision to put a scar on his nipple.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's real.
Maybe it's real. Maybe the actor's actually got a scar over his nipple, in which case, why?
Yeah.
I want to know the story behind the nipple scar.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. We'll see if we can get him on the show and he can answer for you.
Yeah, that would be good. I would like to know the story behind the nipple scar. Is it, if it is the actor's, is it that he had a nipple ring that was ripped out? I don't know. It seems like, because it's such a small scar, but it's also so perfectly placed, because it kind of intersects his nipple diagonally, much like if you were trying to do a cut over the eye.
Yeah.
You would go diagonally. It looks like it's been applied.
Yeah. I've got to be honest, I didn't notice. That's not what I was watching in this scene.
I didn't notice it initially, and then I did pick up on it, and once I saw it, I couldn't see anything else. And I spent a great deal of time focusing on the nipple scar. I
have to go back and rewatch it now, because that's not my experience of this scene at all.
Now, I don't think it's been explained at this point, and I don't know if it ever does get explained, but maybe it'll come up in a future episode. I'm pretty sure I would have remembered something like that, though.
Yeah, it's not ringing a bell. I don't recall it ever being mentioned before. I don't actually recall seeing it, to be honest.
No. So there's that, and then there is dragon names as pillow talk, which is the nerdiest shit I have ever witnessed in my entire fucking life.
I mean, I've seen some pretty nerdy shit, but that's like next level.
Yeah, that is like, I mean, I know she's a whore, so maybe she's just pretending, but I don't think she is. I genuinely think she is getting off on high fantasy dragon names. That is the nerdiest shit I have ever witnessed, and it makes me horribly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. Aside from that, though, there was some interesting character work in the scene for what there was. You've got the bit where she drips a candle on him.
Yes.
And so we had in the first episode, and we'll have it throughout this series, there's talk of the dragon and fire and heat and all the rest of it. And in the very first episode, Daenerys gets into a bath which should be far too hot for her, and doesn't feel it. Whereas in this, he purses and whines like a little bitch when she drops the candle wax on his chest. Now, granted, there's no hair there to protect him because now he's like a little girly boy chest, but it's a little bit of candle wax. No, it's not as if somebody dropped a fucking fat tower on you.
Speaking as someone who has had a face full of candle wax, it does fucking burn. It does hurt. I won't bore you with the story of how I came to have a face full of candle wax.
I think you need to be honest.
It's really not all that interesting, other than I was trying to be clever in a bar. I was very drunk, and I ended up. Basically, there was a candle on the bar.
Did you drink a candle?
No, I didn't drink a candle. That probably would have hurt less than what I actually did.
I'm sure I've been with somebody when they've done that. I thought it was you.
No, in my drunken head, I sort of. I thought that science meant that if I briefly removed the oxygen from the candle by putting my hand over it to snuff it out, and then quickly reintroduced oxygen to the candle, it would relight. Obviously that doesn't work, but I was drunk and thought it would. So, put my hand over the candle, that burned to start with. Took my hand off the candle. Of course it didn't work, so I thought I would introduce as much oxygen as possible, not even thinking that humans don't actually expel oxygen, we breathe it in. So I blew on the candle very hard and ended up, all of the hot wax came out of the dish and splashed me in the face. Not my brightest moment.
Yeah, to be fair, that's up there. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know where the science came from, nor the actual...
Well, you mean the distinct lack of science?
Yeah, I mean, beer is the answer to that. Yeah, so speaking from experience, candle wax does fucking burn. I mean, more,
your face I can understand because the skin coverage is far less.
Yeah, I mean, more. Maybe that's how he got the nipple scars.
Maybe.
Yeah, but more interesting to me here is the whole revelation that Viserys has actually bought the whore for Dany. Because this is the same whore as the previous episode that teaches her how to fuck. And that, again, is just, ew. Their relationship is ew. It really is.
Yes, it is. I mean, when we come to the scene with Danny and Viserys later, we'll talk about that some more. Cause
yeah, totally. We then get a scene where we start again. We get some bollocks, old timey exposition and world building, and we get names thrown out of like the Conqueror and so the Cruel, and just this stupid high fantasy bullshit that I don't care about. This is boring, and this is why I don't like fantasy, and this is why I haven't read the books. It has no relevance on our story. Just move the fuck on. We don't care. But another thing that I noticed in this scene. So this is the scene with the High Council. I think the only one that you get in this episode. But they're talking about all these people. But there's a bowl of fruit on the table, and this is how bored I am by this high fantasy bullshit. Because I really noticed this bowl of fruit, and I noticed a bowl of fruit last week in the same scene setup with the High Council. Anytime we see a fruit bowl in this fucking show, it is the fakest fruit. Like, it is clearly wax fruit. Like, clearly. Now, I don't know whether this is just because I'm watching in high def, and this was still very early days, so maybe they thought they could have got away with that shit. But
maybe
it is clearly wax fruit. So that's another one to look out for. But like, besides the nipple scar, watch out for fruit, because it's wax. I'm telling you.
And later on, coffee cups.
Yeah, and of course Starbucks later on. We then get, again, some nice threat building where we get the line about John Arryn's sickness taking him quite quickly after he read a specific book. Ned obviously picks up on that straight away.
As it says, then, Curse of the Mummy shit. The book is cursed. He died as soon as he read it. Gimme. I want to read it. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ned's ahead of the curve, and they start speaking in riddles a bit here. They start... and here's the worst line of the episode, one of the worst of the show so far, and certainly my biggest issue with this episode. They start referring, and I say talking in code, and they start discussing poison, and then we get the great line that poison is a woman's weapon, apparently, because women can't use swords and shit. That would be wrong, wouldn't it? They have to use poison because they can't get their dainty little hands dirty.
Absolutely. Women and eunuchs, wasn't it? There was something else over.
Women and eunuchs, and then we get the revelation that Varys is a eunuch.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Varys is a eunuch. In other words, look at him. He did it. He must have done it.
Yeah. Look over there. Yeah. So there's that. But then, conversely, I've said that we get this thing about poison is a woman's weapon, and in the very next scene we cut to Arya just doing some full-on Daniel LaRusso Karate Kid shit.
Oh yeah.
Just like she's practically about to do a crane kick on these stairs, and then we find out that she's going to be studying cats the following day. I love it. Anytime Arya's on screen in these early seasons, I fucking love it. As she's like learning to be who she's going to be. It
is brilliant. And there's a line of hers when Ned says, "Oh, you'll marry a lord, and you'll have his sons will be lords and knights and princes." And she said, "No, I won't." And she goes back to practicing her.
She says, "No, that's not me." And her delivery is absolutely perfect. This is another one of those scenes that's just played perfectly. She's so matter of fact about it. She isn't insulted. She isn't, she doesn't take it as a put down. She's not aggressive.
She knows that's the way the world is, but she's just not willing to accept that for herself.
Flat out says that is not who I am. No, that's not me.
And that line will come up later on as well, in a couple of years' time, and hopefully I'll remember this part of the conversation when we get to that episode, because she uses it again on somebody else. Not something else, I should say. And again, it's just the way it's delivered, absolutely perfect, because it's so poignant.
Yes.
But this scene, I love the scene because, as you know, for her character, it develops very well, and the way Ned responds to her is very fatherly. But when you have the conversation with kids where they go, and my teacher said this, and my teacher said that, and my teacher said this, and my teacher said that, and you get so fucking sick of hearing the teacher's name. I have that every bastard in day. It's just nice to see another father go through that, even if it is on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his response to it again, he's just laughing it off because he knows exactly what's coming next. Syria said.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, shut up.
I didn't even pick up on that. So that's yeah. Obviously, not being a father, I did not pick up on that. My children just mow at me.
Wish mine did sometimes.
Yeah. So then we move on to, and we get the scene with Sam and John on the wall. Then, and we get Sam's backstory, which again, is on the nose. It's full. It's a big old exposition dump, but the way it's done and the way it's handled by these two is heartbreaking when you hear it from him.
It is, but I mean, it's an exposition dump. But because of the way it's he's telling it as a story anyway.
Yes, it's
so
perfectly played as well.
It's pitched so well because he's telling the audience, but he's telling John, and the audience just happens to be there. So that's the way you would tell us. So if you've just met somebody for the first time and say, "Oh, where are you from? Tell us a bit about yourself." No, and if you're telling that story, as shit as that story is, and as fucking heartbreaking as that story is, that's how you would tell it in the pub.
Yeah, totally.
So, and it kind of bonds them, and then obviously, John. No, it's a very. I don't want to say intimate moment, but no, it's a very personal moment for them. And obviously, it's a spark of their relationship as opposed to earlier on, whereas John didn't really want to engage. And John kind of makes light of it because he doesn't really know what to do, and we all do that sometimes. Now you're in a conversation, you go, "What do I say now?"
It's a very
fuck it, inappropropriate joke.
Yeah,
Fuck it.
It's a very real moment between two male friends, is what it is, because they're not especially the environment that both of them have come from, where they're around lords and knights, and as we saw with John and Rob having their weird, awkward. Bro farewell, they're not used to relating to other men, whereas in this environment it's something they're going to have to do quite quickly, but it's a very real moment between two men where it's just like, I hear you, I've heard everything you're saying, but I'm not allowed to show you my emotion, so I'm going to make light of it. But it's handled much better than the whole thing with Rob was, for instance. It feels real, and especially at this point in their relationship, like they are just getting to know each other. So Sam has maybe just overstepped and overshared ever so slightly here. So John's just like, put the brakes on. Let's just, I'll throw you an insult, and all will be good. So, and it rings very true to me.
It does. I mean, it was for the content of Sam's story, it could have been quite heavy, and it could have been quite a downer for that point of the episode. But there's such a deft touch to it, and then it ends so well with, it starts well and ends well. John turns to come to the fire because he's freezing, and Sam, I'm not, I'm fine, because he doesn't want to impose, because that's the way he's been brought up. You're in the way, fat boy. Go away, leave us alone. You can go freeze in the corner, just leave us alone. And John is there again, he's looking after him. No, don't do that, don't be such a prick. Get over here, warm yourself up, otherwise, again, you're going to die.
Yeah. Come
here. And then they have the conversation, and in the end of it, John makes the joke, and they're having a bit of a laugh, and Sam is at ease because he's found the friend he's looking for. He may have found the friend he's looking for. John's at ease because now he knows there's a person in there. He realises that, again, as he goes on to say in his next scene, as much as there wasn't really a place at Winterfell for him, there wasn't a place at the Tarly home for Sam.
Yeah.
So, and that's how he's ended up at the wall, and that's how they've all ended up there. So it's that thing that he realises what binds them, and so the bonds they build very early on, whereas others don't, and it takes others a long time to get there.
Yeah, and it's all very nicely handled. And then we move on to another excellent scene. There are this episode is like a collection of extremely good scenes. We get this whole walk around of King's Landing with Littlefinger and Ned, and Littlefinger's pointing out everyone's various spies and who they belong to, and it brings us right into this kind of political thriller web of intrigue stuff, which runs through the rest of this season. And then I feel like it's at its absolute best in this season, like it's done really, really well. And then the show just tries to mimic that for the rest of its run, in spite of the other stories, and it just they never it never feels like they get back to this, because the world got too big. Whereas here, this little political story is confined to King's Landing, which is, let's not forget, a walled city. So Ned's in there with all of these spies, and it feels like a dangerous environment, even to the point where Littlefinger's shown him around and pointed out all the various spies, and Ned sort of says, "Oh, maybe I was I was too harsh on you, or something like that, or I think
maybe I was wrong.
I was wrong not to trust you, wasn't it? Was the line? And Littlefinger says, "Oh no, you were actually quite right to distrust me. It's the wisest decision you've made." So even his friends are not his friends. And then we come straight off that into him finding out a huge revelation. So we've got a powder keg now. We're right in the middle of this. He's in a dangerous environment with some dangerous information. Because of course he follows the book through, goes to the blacksmith, meets how do you pronounce his name? Is it Gendry? Yeah, Gendry. I keep wanting to say Gendry, and I've written it down.
No, it's
like, I know it's Gendry, but I want to say Gendry, but I know it's Gendry. So apologies in advance if I ever mispronounce this in the coming episodes. But it won't happen too much, because as my notes say here, like, Gendry's another character. Like, he starts out strong. I was instantly drawn to him. I like him. But he gets jettisoned like very early on in the show's run. I think he sticks around for this season and a bit of the next one, and then
but I mean it's done in a story way, so it's not as if they just kind of go, "Oh fuck him, we just don't need him anymore. We'll just leave him to rot somewhere." There's actually a story point to him going missing. So I mean it's not handled particularly sensitively or sensibly, but at least there is some logic to it.
Yeah, it's again though it's one of those things where there is so much story going on, and as I said last week, they seem to jump around a lot and never really decide whose story it is and focus in on it, or just jettison stories sometimes. And I kind of feel like, for what he actually adds over the course of the show, they could have done without Gendry altogether.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we get to season 8, there's quite a few issues with characters who have been played up so much and then do
fuck all. And Gendry's one.
I'm not talking about major characters. Obviously, there are issues with the writing that will come up and all the rest of it. But there are entire characters who, and there are sequences that are only ever written into season 8.
Yeah.
There's one between Gendry and Arya, and it never comes up again.
Yeah. Part of the thing with adaptation, and I know there's been a lot said with these later seasons that the showrunners are good at adapting, but they're not good at writing their own stuff. But here's case one, and I pose this, that they're not even that good at adaptation, because to effectively adapt something, you need to realise that you're working in a different medium, and you need to really hone that laser and get down to the core of the material, which is why in a lot of adaptations you'll see entire characters jettisoned, or multiple characters snowballed into one amalgamation. And a lot of these little stories, things like Gendry and all of those, you could easily have had a cipher here and rolled all of these characters into one, rather than had all of these various plot strands going on that kind of just fizzle out to nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we talked about this at length last week, so I don't want to go into it too much. But yeah, it's kind of like they wanted to make a direct translation. They didn't want to adapt it. They didn't want to make it fit for TV. They just wanted to make a show of the book.
Then read the fucking book.
Yeah, read the book instead of spending a couple $100 million on the series. Yeah. You're better off just buying everybody a copy of the book and sending it out.
Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad they adapted this, because I would never have read those books. I will never read those books. So that, what I've got, I'm more than happy with. But yeah, there are points where it could be a lot tighter, and this is one of them. But anyway, we get introduced to Gendry. I like him as a character. He's got a little bit of fire about him. He's clearly a capable fighter, and is built as such. He's built as if he's almost going to be the hero that rides in and saves the day. We start building with that, especially with Ned's line about, if he ever looks like he wants to pick up a sword, you send him to me.
And I mean, especially, it comes up later on, obviously, when he meets Jon. But again, this whole thing of, Ned realises who he is pretty much straight away. He takes one look at him from a certain angle.
Because he looks at his eyes. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I mean, yeah, okay, well. But I mean, no, he recognises him as being Robert's son straight away. There's nothing from anything that is said that could give that away. So he clearly recognises him. And you automatically look at there are parallels there, that they're the bastard sons of the best friends who are running the country. We think they're running the country. And yeah, you expect at that point, because we've been introduced to Ned's bastard from minute 8. We know he has a bastard son. We know that he's going to be a big part of this story going forward, and you kind of expect that Gendry's going to be kind of a mirror for that.
You do. You do.
And then, as we said, they kind of piss that away and just jettison him for a couple of years.
So we get the information anyway that he is King Robert's bastard son, is how Ned Stark puts it. And literally all this scene is missing is dramatic music and a raised eyebrow.
Absolutely.
The way Ned throws it. This is a rare occasion where Sean Bean does not hit it out of the park, but then he's working with
this
what
is the
he's
Sean
got.
Bean I expected.
Where he's asked who was that, and he says that was King Robert's bastard son, and it's literally just missing dun dun dun.
But not only that, I remember thinking when I was watching it today, you're in the middle of a very crowded, very
why would you throw that out there,
area,
especially when you've just been shown how many spies there are?
Why would you ever say that in public?
It's ridiculous.
It makes no fucking sense. And it's, again, this is the sort of thing that knocks me off with the writing throughout the show.
Yeah, there are some very stupid decisions.
I mean, they don't think of the world they're in. They don't consider, actually, that's... You might want to say it because it moves the story on, but it's not as realistic as a show about dragons can fucking be. It's not realistic. You wouldn't say something that's supposed to be a big secret in the middle of a street.
And what it is, and we're going to scratch the surface here of something that is going to be a recurring theme in this podcast, so much so it probably even needs a jingle if anybody can write one out there. But action and consequence just does not exist in the world of Game of Thrones, and it is my primary problem with all of the writing. Actions do not have consequences.
There are some points later on, mainly with the Hound, actually. There's lots of talk from characters about having revenge and this, that, and the other. I think the only one who genuinely does get his revenge in a particular situation, I think it's in season 7, the old Lovejoy episode. He gets his revenge in that, or following that. But beyond that, there's nothing.
Yeah, there are occasions. This isn't like every single character, but
the majority.
In the majority of the time, actions don't have consequences. Deaths especially, and this is the really annoying thing. Characters' deaths, by the time we get to season 2 or 3 and people start to buy into this whole shock death thing, this becomes like death porn. It's like a fucking Saw movie. And these characters just get introduced and offed with such speed that no one's given time to breathe, if you'll pardon the pun.
That's right. I think the problem with it is as well is that because people expect it, and I mean, we talked about Walking Dead last week, and they do some fairly high-profile deaths and some fairly big stuff, but it's not constant. And
when those deaths happen, they are felt. They are felt, and the shockwaves will run through seasons, like from one season into 2 or 3 seasons later.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, you have one, and then the next episode, it's kind of mentioned, but then you're on to the next one. Or to piss on it, to completely diminish it, there are 300 people die in a fire. It doesn't mean anything.
No.
So as a viewer, as a fan, you don't get to grieve. You don't get to have that response that you're supposed to have when a treasured character dies. And we'll get onto that in episode 8 of the series.
We'll get onto that several times throughout the course of this podcast. It is my primary cause of vitriol against this show. It is what causes me to storm out of the room, drop remotes, say I'm never watching the show again. Like a sucker, I always came back. But
if you didn't, you wouldn't get to do the show. So
it has been the cause of so many angry rants. We'll get to them as and when they come. But yeah. As I say, you just picked at the surface there. So anyway, moving on. So back to this thing about Game of Thrones insisting that every character has something to do in every episode, rather than just saying, they're not actually of any use to us this week.
Yes, we won't pay them this week. We won't have them in this episode.
We see Jaime Lannister guarding Robert's door. It's a nice scene.
It is. I really like this scene, actually. It doesn't mean
do anything. But we get some great stuff. We get like the exchange where the other guard says, Theon Greyjoy, he's a good lad. And again, Jaime, true north, all the time. Theon, he's a good lad. I doubt that.
Yeah,
is Jaime's response.
But I mean, even before that, where as I say, it's the head of Ned's guard, or whatever they're being called, and he said, I beg your pardon, forgive me, my lord. He said, why? Have you wronged me? Straight away, he just doesn't give him a chance. puts him on the back foot straight away, and this is what Jamie's very good at. It's what Tyrion's very good at as well. He disarms people with words, and the difference being that Jamie can do it with the sword as well, and Tyrion can't. But he disarms people with words, and he talks his way around them to a point where people don't really know how to engage with him.
Yeah, I mean,
and so by the time they actually get with the idea of what they're doing, it's like, oh, what did I come here for? What was I going to say? Oh yeah, that's right. And all of a sudden, Jamie's then in control of that conversation.
Yeah, totally. As I say, he originally describes Theon as a shark on a mountaintop, which in and of itself, is great, but in and of itself,
there should be a t-shirt.
But it takes you a moment to go, huh? So he's already got the guy on the back foot, and then he sort of rebuts him with, oh, Theon, yeah, he's a good lad. And again, then you get the, I doubt it. Then, just in the middle of this scene, we get what is unquestionably my favourite line of this episode, if not potentially the show so far.
Go on, I bet this is going to be the same one I've written
down. I did a spit take. I don't know what the correct parlance would be there, but I did a spit take into my coffee. I was taking a sip of coffee. The door opened. Robert's in the room with a bunch of whores who you're laughing and giggling and slapping and tickling all the way through. The door opens and you just hear, I bet you smell of blackberry jam.
That's
amazing. Like, that has got to have been ad-libbed. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, you get the impression that say the fucking stupidest, filthiest thing you can think of, and it's oh, you smell like blackberry jam. Let me see if you taste like it.
It's
what the
amazing.
But again, just seeing Jamie having to respond to that as well, and you can only imagine how many takes of that they did, whereby he goes to shut that door and somebody's standing there with their cock out, or somebody's drawn something horrendous on the back of the clapperboard.
Why would people do that?
But you can just sort of you can imagine how many times they broke him before they got that scene to work, because he has to keep a perfectly straight face, such a calm,
because of course the idea of the scene is that Robert's actually trying to get a rise out of him. He's doing this to rub it in Jamie's face. But what a line! What an absolute line!
I wrote it down because I bet you.
I loved it. I was absolutely howling with laughter. We then get more Jon and Sam stuff, although Sam's not actually in the scene. It's just Jon defending Sam to the other members of the Night Watch in his absence. I fucking love this Jon, as I've said. Like, just absolutely like. Look, you need to leave this guy alone. What you're doing is wrong. But moreover, now he's my friend. So, fuck you all.
Yeah. And again, he kind of goes down that route of, look, he's the same as us. He's got nowhere to go. There's no place for him in the world, so he's come here. He could be in a million other places. He could have gone any fucking where. He's here, same as you, so get on with it.
And then we get the Batman scene. Like, genuinely, like, Jon just wakes the guy up in the middle of the night with a gag in his mouth, and flanked by two other members of the Night's Watch either side, and Ghost on his fucking chest snarling in his face. Like,
yes,
it is some high level Batman shit. It is like, don't you dare even consider crossing me. Here's the shock and awe of what I'm capable of.
Yeah, wherever you think I'm going to do, had the dog.
Like, you need to be scared of me, basically. Absolutely using fear as a weapon, which we've not seen him do up until this point. Like, he's been honourable and he's shown that he can handle himself, but this is Jon the fucking badass. This is like, you do not cross me and mine. I love it. Absolute badass scene. Plus, any time we get to see the dire wolves is always a good time for me. Ghost, also my favourite, so I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see Brands in this episode very briefly on the bed, but no, again, doesn't do anything, and you say, oh yeah, there's a wolf there. Great. Actually, no, the only thing it does do is when Theon opens it growls, which again, I had a bit of a smirk at that. I thought,
Whereas Ghost is full on ready to rip out a throat here.
Oh yeah, Ghost is snarling, and it's like, he's ready for action. He wants something to eat.
Yeah, totally.
What do you feed a dire wolf all the way up there? I mean, I can't imagine rations are big enough to feed a dire wolf.
I guess you let it stroll north of the wall and eat what it finds.
How does it get back in? I don't know. It's not going to ring the bell, is it?
Oh, you could probably scale the wall or something. I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know.
Just a thought, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, good question though, because nobody else has a wolf or anything up there, so you'd think the rest of them would be like, hang on, you need double rations for your fucking dog. What's it bringing to the mix?
Yeah. Maybe there are hunting dogs or something there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they've got to feed horses and shit as well, haven't they? So there's going to be stables and animal feed.
Yeah, but you don't feed horses meat, do you?
Maybe the direwolf eats the lame horses.
Ah, yeah. That saves on disposal costs. Yeah, fair play.
So there you go. So yeah, we get that scene. Then we get John in the very next scene standing up to the commander and completely usurping him, just directly disobeying an order and one-upping him, letting him know, like, these men follow me, they don't follow you. There's a real power play there, and again, it's awesome. This is again a genesis moment of John, the leader of the Night's Watch. Like, he is a leader of men, and they will follow him. Because he's commanding respect at this point. It's great.
Well, that's it. And I think that, I mean, Alistair Thorne is kind of, he's your token movie drill sergeant.
Yes.
You know, he's there to tell them they're all shit, because it's a tough love thing. He's telling them they're all shit because, you know, it'll inspire them and make them work harder to please him. At the end of it, you know, by the time they take their oath, they'll be ready. That's that's the way it's set up. But he's not there, and you get a scene. I don't think it's next. I think it's a little bit later on where Sam and John are cleaning the armory, and it descends again into a bit of a laugh, and they're pissing about. And he comes in and he starts talking about, you know, what winters were like, and, you know, how hard it is, you know, up north of the wall when winter comes in, as opposed to when you're in a place like Winterfell where it might be cold, but you've got a fire and you're indoors and you've got a bed to sleep in. And again, that scene. It starts off quite poignantly, and it's you almost think that this character is going to sort of not necessarily break down or not necessarily start respecting them, but he's going to give a bit of himself to it, and he starts talking about when they cannibalise the horses and when they start cannibalising each other, and you think, oh, okay, this is a realisation for his character that actually these people are there, but then he just turns into a savage little tit again and starts talking about how they should have eaten, they'd have fed for a fortnight if they eat Sam. And then when they graduate as men and Night's Watch in a couple of weeks' time, they won't be men, they'll be boys, and they'll be dead by Christmas. And you actually realise he's not doing the drill sergeant bit; he's just a cock.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get more of him later on in the show, but you almost get the impression he's jealous of the fact that these people will come and have something. They'll come and go north of the wall. They'll be rangers or wherever else, and he is stuck there, training the dregs of society who don't want to fucking be there and have no right to be there. Most of them should be dead, they should have been hanged, but that's all he's got because nobody takes the Night's Watch seriously anymore. And it's kind of like there's like a bitterness to his character where he's just like, well, fuck it, I don't really want to do it, nobody wants me to do it, so I'll just kind of get my way through it, take my money and go down the whorehouse at the end of every month when I get paid. Yeah,
he's a nasty piece of work. And I mean, just to touch on that scene, we'll come back to the one before it shortly. Then we'll just jump forward onto this one because we're talking about it. You do get that sort of moment between Sam and John, and it's played very much like earlier, except this time they're talking about losing their virginity, and you know they refer to it as having a Sally on the side, and just generally, again, like blokey banter. And John, but this time John opens up to Sam instead of the other way around.
He does, and Sam makes the same joke twice, but not know where to put it. And it's so out of character at this point because we've not seen Sam do anything other than be a pusillanimous little twat. You know, he's so cowardly, he's so timid and meek. Then all of a sudden he's growing his balls. And he starts busting on John. Hang on a fucking minute, where'd that come from?
I think the characters are starting to get comfortable with each other, aren't they? And then...
Well, that's it. And it's not just comfortable with each other. He realises that he's got an ally in John, but also in the other men because
they follow John.
Tried to kill him. They follow John, and so because of that, he knows he is safe and he can trust them. Therefore, they're not going to kill him in his sleep.
Yeah, and again, it's also that thing of just. John slightly oversharing, and so Sam disarming him with humour as opposed to acknowledging that, okay, actually, yes, we are both virgins, even though you're obviously far more attractive than me and I assumed otherwise. You've proven me wrong, but rather than say I'm wrong, I'll make a joke about it. You know, and it's just avoiding that uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, and there are two things that struck me with this scene, actually, apart from what we've just said, is that there seems to be only one whore in Winterfell.
Yes, because Theon talked about Ros.
Now, Theon talked about Ros when he was with Tyrion at the beginning, and then Obviously, John's talking about the beautiful red-headed Roz with the perfect tits, whatever it is. And in the very first episode, when we first see Tyrion, he is in the brothel with Ross.
Yeah.
Are there no other fucking hookers in Winterfell?
Apparently not.
Seriously, talk about a one-hooker town.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, the men of the North, they're honourable. This isn't King's Landing.
Also, there are more animals in the North.
Well, yeah, there is that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it is quite an interesting scene as well, though, because again, you just kind of assume that Jon, looking the way he looks and being the kind of man he is, and essentially, even though he's a bastard, being highborn, you'd assume that he is just getting the ladies. But he opens up and says that he hasn't, and Moron goes to explain. There's a nice bit of character work here as well, where he says, like, look, I'm a bastard. I'm not going to make more bastards because I don't want anyone to have my life.
And considering his life was quite fucking privileged compared to other people's, it's a weird juxtaposition because it's supposed to be noble, and you get an impression of him as being a noble character, but in fact his life wasn't that bad. He didn't know his mother, and yes, there are issues surrounding that, and there's a stigma, but at the same time, it's not as if he was living in the gutter.
No, but it's more the emotional baggage of that, and again, him wearing it on his sleeve and choosing to wear it as armour as opposed to just carrying it. And it's the Batman choice again of, this is my damage and I'll make it work for me, but it's never going to affect anyone else ever again, so long as I have something to say about it. Again, Jon Snow, Batman, two sides of the same coin.
Now, the only problem I have with this scene, and it's this scene and the scene on top of the wall between these two as well, is that Kit Harington's accent goes all over the fucking shop.
I can't say I noticed.
Kit Harington, you hear interviews with him and he's quite well spoken. He's got a little bit of RP about him. He's not a northerner. And his accent for the most part is fine, but there are certain, I can't remember what words they are, but there are certain words he says over more than once in each scene. And you just get, it goes a bit Irish, it goes a little bit southern, and you're not quite sure what the fuck he's doing. And whether it's because he's getting into the scene and he's sort of getting into the character, and he forgets himself, or whether he just can't do those particular words, which I know some actors have issues with particular phrases and words. It just tickled me, but it did pull me out of the scene a couple of times of the two scenes. I just found it quite amusing. But if you haven't noticed it, that's quite interesting.
Totally washed over me. But that might be because I'm just standing hard for Jon Snow at this point, so
maybe
I'm just not noticing the little things like that. But then in this scene as well, this is the point where we get the whole speech about what it's like out there in the long winter, and we get the line, if you took your gloves off to have a piss, you lost a finger to the frost.
Yeah.
Now, fuck your fingers. If just exposing, surely you'd be more worried about your dick dropping off. If just exposing your fingers to the frost is going to make them drop off, then the same thing's going to happen to your dick, surely.
Well, yeah, you'd think so. I know, it's not as if they're going to be wearing a cock warmer or anything.
No. So why he's worried about his fucking fingers is beyond me.
I have no idea.
But there you go, actions and consequences again, I guess. So, I mean, we jump forward there, but to just take the slightest step back then, we get a scene where Dany stands up to Viserys, and it's great.
Yes.
She's really starting to grow as a character now. It
is, and it comes on the back of a really fucking uncomfortable sequence whereby he drags the whore into her. It's not really a tent, is it? It's kind of like a hut.
Yes,
but it's a very nice hut. Yeah. He drags the whore in by her hair, and he's beating her and all that. And you don't give your sluts commands to give to me. I'm the dragon. I'm the king for all this bollocks. And again, she's very calm. She's very rational. That's not my intention. You've misinterpreted. You've misunderstood. I wanted to invite you to supper. I've got you this gift. To the other hand, may take this one, clean her up, help her out, leave us alone. And she's starting to become a bit more regal and a bit more authoritative in herself. Now, she's not this demure, simpering little sex toy that she was at the beginning. And so she starts saying, and then all of a sudden he belts her, and he's got her on the floor. He's pinning her arms behind her head, and again, you don't know whether the intention to rape her is there, but that's how it looks. It's, I'm going to teach you a lesson. You have angered the dragon. I'm going to show you what happens when you do that. And you don't know whether he's going to stab her or try and rape her. And it's so uncomfortable to watch. And then she grabs some fucking golden trinket or other and smacks him about the head with it.
Yeah.
And the look on his face is like he's a 5-year-old who's been caught stealing sweets and had a wallop for it.
Yeah, it's a great scene. It is a great scene, and it's more character genesis stuff, really. You know, we very shortly thereafter we go to the scene with John, and then we come back to Dany, and she actually utters the line then that, you know, Viserys is unable to lead an army. And
yes.
the steely look of determination on her face when she says it is literally like, I am going to do this, not him. And it's right there, you know.
There's two parts to it. There's the fact that my brother couldn't lead an army even if he had one, but I can. But also, my brother couldn't lead an army if he was given one, so I'm going to make sure he's not given one.
And
it's no, there's because at this point you've just had the exchange with Jorah where, again, she calls him out for selling slaves.
Yeah.
And whereas in the previous time it was mentioned they were poachers on his land and he was trying to it was something and nothing. This time it's a far more personal account where, yes, I did, and I know it was wrong, but I did it for what I thought were the right reasons, and the right reasons turned out to be wrong anyway.
Yeah.
And again, you get a bit more insight into his character, and obviously their relationship is building to where that goes in future. And yeah, that's a really nice scene because it sets up so much of both of their characters.
Yeah.
And the journey they're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, Dany's. I feel like we've talked about the character genesis, kind of the sparks of it being there in the other episodes, but I feel like Dany, as she will become, then Dany, the breaker of chains and all of that. Dany is born here. Yeah. You can see the look on her face. She has had the call to action here. She realizes that she's going to lead this army, and everything she does after this kind of leads towards that. So we get that. And then we get into we're sort of on our way to the closeout of the episode now with the joust, and we get again Arya. I love Arya so much when she's still a child at this point, so is able to get away with just childhood innocence, but also this don't give a fuck attitude that she will take through into her adulthood as well, where sort of Lord Baelish is sat next to Sansa just being creepy as all hell as he is, and Arya just...
Yeah, actually, sorry, I've just remembered something, actually, while we're talking about Arya, before we talk about this scene. When the whore was in the bath with Viserys and she's talking about all the things she's seen, she lays out the entire fucking series, all 8 seasons in that one thing. She talks about men who take their faces off as he's taking their clothes. All this stuff. She lays out the entire fucking show for 8 years, and it's skipped over so briefly. And it's only start talking about Arya I remembered about it. But it's so deftly done because you wouldn't even notice it was there. It's such a throwaway comment.
Yeah.
And it only starts to mean something later on.
Yes. Again, all of that stuff is there at the beginning, you know. And I particularly hate the whole thing with the House of Many Faces. The story completely lost momentum for me there. But yeah, it's spelled out, you know, as is people resurrecting. She talks about people resurrecting and things like that. Like it's all there, and it's thrown away. I'd not made a note of that actually. I did mentally clock it in the scene, but I was so obsessed with the nipple scar that I didn't make a note of it. So well done for bringing that up.
Yeah. It's only because you mentioned Arya there.
But you do. You get it all spelled out. But yeah, you got this whole thing where Baelish is there being creepy as all hell to Sansa and introducing himself, and Arya just flat out, no ways and graces, just turns around and asks flat out, "Why do they call you Littlefinger?" Just doesn't give a shit.
No, and I mean, I would, if it was me writing the scene for the shit of it, I'd have, or if I was shooting this scene, I'd have uttered the line because I have a little dick, just to see who breaks first. Because it's such a, I mean, his explanation is such a fucking stupid one anyway. I was the smallest child on an island called the Fingers or something like that. What the fuck?
They're two young girls though, creepy as he is. I still throwing out because I've got a small dick is probably a little bit crossing the line. But let's be fair, we all thinking the first time you hear the nickname Littlefinger, we're all thinking he's got a small dick.
He has a small penis.
That's what we think it stands for, and that's why Arya's line is so funny because she knows that herself as well, and she's using it as a weapon here. I love her so much.
Now again, this seems pretty good. Sansa again being a complete bitch. completely useless, simpering idiot, mooning over Joffrey before Littlefinger turns up. And we've had one scene with her earlier on as well, with the scepter as well, where she shows a bit of backbone and a bit of spunk, where she's talking about, why do I need to know all this stuff about who built the Red Keep? What I want to know is, how did my grandfather die in this room? What happened? And she does stand up for herself a bit. She does show a bit of gumption, which she doesn't show a lot in these early seasons. And then we get to this scene, and she just turns back into moony-eyed teenager. Arya is brilliant, and there's a shot of her at the end of the joust, which I think is perfect. But this is the first time you actually see Robert in this scene as well. You've heard him earlier on, but you see him, and he's there in all his pomp. Cersei's there looking as if she could be anywhere else because somebody just shit on her cereal. And Robert's line is, I've been sitting here all day, start the joust, I need a piss. Or start the joust before I piss myself. And you're at that point, you say, he's a buffoon.
Yeah.
For all the work they've done with him in the last couple of episodes, yes, we know he's a drunken braggart. We know he whores around. They show him to be an absolute dick. Yeah,
they really do. They really do.
Especially since you've been introduced to his bastard child, and you've been shown his whoring and all the rest of it, and his attitude of making Jaime stand outside to listen. There's a side to Robert that's not really talked about, but he's a fucking vicious man.
Yeah, he is, and they show that here. And then
to a point where Cersei gets up and leaves. And then we get the rest of the scene with the joust.
Well, the joust itself is just a throwaway thing. I feel like maybe they just wanted a joust, which is fine.
They did, but it kind of serves a purpose because you had the guy Sir Hugh, who was John Arryn's squire, who's now been made up to a knight straight away. And again, it's all put on. You get Ned starting to do his Sherlock bit, and how quickly was he made a knight after John Arryn died? Well, yeah, that's the thing. So must be straight away. Again, implying there's something going on, and you look at the relationship between the Cleganes and the Lannisters. And then, so conveniently, Sir Hugh is against the Mountain, and in what should be a very amicable, very entertaining joust, turns into him getting his throat speared by what? No, his lance had a fist on the end of it, whereas if the Mountain's did, it didn't have it for long.
No. The Mountain, interestingly though, dressed entirely in black, looking like a fucking medieval Darth Vader.
Yes.
Not subtle at all.
The Mountain, the first of 3 actors to play the Mountain.
Yes, I noticed that when he raised his helmet, I was like, that's not the Mountain I know.
No, and it's not. I mean, the Mountain that must be remembered obviously is the deformed, mutant, genetically modified Frankenstein monster thing. But yeah, so you get him here, and then he'll be played by somebody else in the next season, and then you won't see him again until season 4, and then the last 4 seasons he's played by the World's Strongest Man guy. I can't remember his name. So yes, I mean it's the first of 3 Mountains.
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me most
was 3 peaks.
Yeah. The thing that struck me with this scene towards the end of it, once you had that bit where obviously Sir Hugh's throat's been stabbed and been taken out with this lance, and he's there coughing out blood. You get the instant noise of flies on him, which I think is a beautiful touch.
And then you see the fly as well. Yeah.
You see the fly, and then you see Arya's face.
Yeah.
And this is the best thing she's ever fucking seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. And her face, it's just lit up, and everybody else is there trying not to vomit.
Everyone else is horrified, yeah.
Possibly with the exception of Robert, because he's probably pissed and can't see what's going on. Yeah. And he's probably more annoyed that, somebody's gone and died on his watch. But yeah, Arya's face is absolutely perfect.
And then you get Littlefinger leaning in, starting a power play, and giving Sansa the story of the Mountain and the Hound, and you're like, is this really the best time for this story?
But is there ever really a good time for this story
really,
for that character? I mean,
no.
For viewers, yes, it's an important story, and we build up to it for the next 8 years as to know what would happen when the two of them smack down.
And you can't help but feel like this was sort of played for the viewer's benefit, because it's definitely given at a point where it's going to have the most dramatic heft, because we've just seen the villain be a villain, and then we get the backstory, and again it's this kind of creeping dread that is being built. But it's like, again,
why does Sansa need to know that?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense.
What's it going to do to her?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense. It's another one of those decisions where it's just like, not here. Like, yes, we need this information, but that's handled very badly, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's such a it's so important going forward to the characters, the Hound and the Mountain, that it's kind of thrown away a little bit.
Yes, it is, and it would have been better to organically build that rather than just throw it in there for some cheap sort of tension. Because the next scene has plenty of it anyway. Because we sort of cut to Ned and Cersei basically speaking in veiled threats to each other for the entire scene, and we get more of that political tension.
They're not even that veiled, to be honest.
They're not. They're very thinly veiled. Neither of them is flat out saying it, but
the biggest thing that struck me with this scene, actually, and it's very disappointing, it's very annoying, is that Ned's there. No, he's got the dagger that they tried to kill Bran with on top of this book, which apparently gives away all of the country's secrets in terms of parentage. Mm-hmm. It's the Doomsday Book. It's the census. So you've got that open on a page which could probably lead him to Cersei. She comes in. He makes no effort to hide it. But what's more annoying is that in the time it's taken her to leave the joust and walk up to where Ned lives or where Ned works, she's had her hair done and she's changed her fucking dress.
Didn't notice either of those things.
When she's down at the joust, her hair is up and it's very neat, and it's very there's like 16 tons of hairspray on it to hold it in place. By the time she gets upstairs, it's in a completely different style, more akin to what we normally see her in, and she's gone from wearing a brown dress to a red dress. And
you can't even play that it's a different day, because she does say in the scene, "Why aren't you at your tournament?"
Yeah, which to Ned's response is, "Not my tournament, it's the King's tournament." But yeah, it's played for, you should be downstairs with the rest of us. If I've got to suffer, so have you. But yeah, it's clearly the same day.
I mean, that's just careless. That's Starbucks cup level careless.
I think that's even worse, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody leaving a non-prop in a filming area between takes, that happens, and it's unfortunate, and there should be somebody on continuity picking that up. But for a character to, because they're filming on a different day, to be in a completely different costume when she only ever appears in these two fucking scenes.
Yeah,
there's no reason for her to be in a different costume at all.
No, that's bad.
That's pretty poor.
But other than that, it's a great scene. It's more of that political tension that we were talking about earlier.
It's a great scene. Yeah, the writing is great. The performances are great. I mean, obviously we talked about Sean Bean and a rare misstep earlier on with his with his performance, but Lena Headey, whatever you pronounce it, very rarely puts a foot wrong in these early seasons.
No, she very rarely puts a foot wrong anyway. I feel like towards the late seasons, it's more the writing and creative team that
I think so,
than her. She just doesn't get given the right material, I think.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we talked about it last week. They sort of almost turned her into a pantomime villain because they just don't know what to do with that. Once they go away from the source material and they start writing it for themselves, it's kind of like some of the characters get lost because they don't know what to do with them.
Totally. So yeah, we get that scene, and then we're into the closeout with Kat and Tyrion at this.
Yes, no, I
bar.
love this.
So did I, and fucking hell, it's Bronn of the Blackwater. Like, I didn't realise.
Who's my other favourite? He's the other one I was talking about when he turns up.
Okay, Bronn. So we were on the same page, and I thought Hodor was one of the other ones you referred to, but yeah, Bronn, one of my personal favourites as well, but my earliest memories of him are much later on in the show, actually. I didn't realise he was there from season 1.
I did, because I watched ahead a couple of weeks ago. I started watching again before we talked about doing the show, so I knew he appeared. I forgot he appeared in this episode. I thought he was. They met him at the Vale, where in the next episode where Kat takes Tyrion off to the Vale to face justice. So that's where I thought he appeared. But yeah, I mean, straight away, and Tyrion comes in, and the bar patron, wench, whatever she is, we haven't got any rooms, and he's knocking a gold coin, and said, surely somebody can do something about it, and everybody's sort of averting their gaze and all the rest of it, and up steps Bronn and goes, hey, you can have mine, I don't give a fuck, whatever, I won't pay it. And at this point you have no idea who this character is, where he's going to come from. He could just be some average dickhead in a bar who goes, yeah, I have my room, I'll take the money, I'll go elsewhere, I'll go find myself a brothel or whatever. And he will obviously become important later on. But yeah, this scene, it's slightly overplayed for me. I mean, I don't think she needed to. I mean,
it's very overplayed on Kat's part, very much so.
Yeah, I mean, Kat's there. She's in hiding. And her and Roderick Castle they've gone undetected. God knows how, because it's the old Marvel disguise of putting a hat on. It's kind of fucking lazy. But she's there. She's no.
But to be fair, Tyrion calls it straight away. Like, she's trying to hide from him initially
Yes.
when he comes in.
Yeah,
But
and I mean,
flat out calls
that's
her on it.
that's good, and that works really well. I mean, yeah, he totally calls her on it. But yeah, it's like, no, she's there, and no, your father and my father are friends, and your father and my father are friends, and your father and my father are friends. I don't really like you, but yeah, I'll use you as well. Which one of you will arrest him for me? And all of a sudden, these fucking 6 swords are at his throat. And
I feel like the intention of the scene was good.
Yeah,
but she just comes off as a dick, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because rather than do the dirty work herself, she goes, "Oh, you and you." It wouldn't be so bad if she picked one of them and just says, "You're pledged to our house. Arrest him." The fact that she calls all 3 of them in this weird power play, just makes it come off as just. Yeah, it's just a dick move, really.
It's a dick move, but also she's so fucking desperate at this point, because, I mean, we talked about in the last 2 episodes where she's a complete fucking badass, and in the next episodes, there's a scene where, again, she's in a situation where you wouldn't expect her to come out of it particularly well, and she kicks ass. So to go from where she's been to that via this piece of crap where she's just like, I can't possibly get my hands dirty, I'm a lady. And it's just a bit disappointing.
It is. It doesn't. I don't like the way it ends. I like the scene at the start. I like the fact that we see Bronn. It just doesn't feel right with Kat here for me. But
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think the performance from what's her name? Is it Michelle? Somebody.
There's nothing wrong with the performance. It's the scene itself just escalates to the wrong place.
Yeah, it's just somebody. It just kind of feels a bit heavy-handed. Michelle Farley, I was right. It feels very heavy-handed, and you just get the impression that the writers have gone, right, there's so much stuff in the books, and we could probably get away with not having all of it, but it would be useful if we had some of it.
Yeah.
Let's kind of throw a little bit in, and so that's why they name-checked all those people.
Yeah, and again, it's just the stupid high fantasy son of so and so, father of so and so. I don't care; it's not relevant. She just needs to seize him. She could literally have picked any one of those, and said, "You're pledged to our house. Arrest him." Or she could literally have stood up and said, "Arrest that man." They're in the north, she has more sway than he does.
Well, that's it. They're at the crossroads. So they're kind of meeting halfway, aren't they? He's on his way down from Winterfell, she's on her way back there, so they're kind of halfway. But yeah, she's like, I'm Catelyn Stark, formerly Catelyn Tully. Somebody arrest him.
Yeah.
Job done.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, and it's so overplayed, and then, this fucking extreme close-up you get on her face. So who'll take him in so he can face justice? And so,
again, it's that dun dun dun. It's bad. It's bad. It's cheesy and bad. So that, another misstep, just like the Gendry one, and we also have the horrendous rapey nonsense going on with Dany. But other than that, this episode itself is pretty light. It's very entertaining, as I said at the start. It's good. There's no mention of winter coming or the White Walkers again, which fucking annoys me every time. We've jettisoned that storyline this week for some reason. But I respect the decision to do it in as much as we focused on the political stuff instead. Now, if that was the show that this had become, fair enough. But it's not, and we're going to end up going back to it. So it's like, just give us the White Walkers. That's what I care about.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, this episode is about a minute shorter than last week's. Our episode is considerably shorter, but I mean, it seems to move a lot quicker. The pacing seems a lot better. There doesn't seem to be as much drag in it.
It definitely pops along better. It's funnier and lighter, is what it is. There's a much defter touch to this episode.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that. I mean, last week there wasn't so much of Jon. What you did get of Jon was quite heavy. Whereas this week you could see a bit more of his character. You get to see a bit more of Jon, the humble, the humble young man who is going to go on to be a leader, a reluctant leader, but he's there because he's doing what's right. And you see a bit of that. You see Daenerys all of a sudden going, you know what? Fuck this noise. I'm not your slave. I'm not your punching bag because you can't command an army. You can't get things done without me. I'm gonna start showing you that actually you need me more than I need you.
it's a John and Danny episode. It really is. Like the other characters are in there, but again, you kind of, I feel like this is an episode where you do start to feel kind of the weight of those other stories that they feel must be told. Like I said, the scene with Jamie that goes nowhere. Even the scenes with Ned, really, like it helps build this political intrigue, but short of the Gendry thing, they don't really go anywhere. It's just every major story step we take in this episode really is related to John and Danny, and it's their episode now, so I'd almost have liked a little bit more of them, but what we got was fine. And as I say, at least everything was handled sort of with a bit of a deft touch here for the most part, aside from those clanging dramatic reveals. It feels to me at this point, like watching this episode, this feels more like an episodic show at the moment than the kind of grand overarching story that it will become. And I actually think I prefer it because of that. I feel like they're able to be lighter, and they're able to just get away with a bit more. Once we start focusing on this grand overarching story and everything has to slot into place, and we spend ages and ages with tedious exposition that then gets flushed down the toilet, that's where the cracks start to appear. Whereas here at the moment, you kind of forgive them a lot of stuff, because if you don't like it, you're on to the next thing very quickly, and it's fun and it's light. So it does, it feels more episodic, and it works better because of that.
It does, and I mean, a lot of that's down to the writing. I mean, this is the first episode not written by Benioff and Weiss. So written by Brian Cogman, who was a writing assistant on the pilot. He was then hired for the full series as a script editor, and his unofficial title was Keeper of the Mythos for the show, which is fucking awesome. Yeah. Or it would be if it worked. If it all actually held together, fair play. Yeah, so no, I mean his main job was completing the show Bible, which maybe should have stuck to other things, but we'll get to that later on. But it's a cool title. I wish I had that title for something. Yeah,
totally. So yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much all I've got to say about this episode. Is light and breezy, and I enjoyed it. There's nothing major that pissed me off here. There were a few uncomfortable moments and a few poor choices, but for the most part, there's more good than bad this time around.
I think that was my take on it as well. I know it moved along better than last week. It was a bit more interesting. We didn't learn as much, but it felt. Even though you found out more about the world and the characters last week, this seemed to move the story on a little bit more. And it kind of gets you back to, the next episode, The Wolf and the Lion, you get a bit more progression on the story, as well as some decent character work. But yeah, it's just one of those that it seems to gear us up for it a bit better than last week. Last week kind of didn't go anywhere, and so if you feel that this is the one you should have had last week to keep things ticking over, and you could have lost an episode quite easily, apart from the fact you'd have lost all that character work.
Yeah.
But yeah, this felt a lot easier to me. It didn't seem like a slog to watch it.
No, not at all. The hour or whatever it was, just short of an hour, I think, flew by.
56 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, as always, we'd love to get people's thoughts on that.
Especially on the nipple scar. Like, even if you've read the books and it's explained in the books, like, if it's there and that's why he has a nipple scar, hit us up. Like, I need to know, because it's bugging me.
And if it's the actor and if it's natural and all the rest of it, again, somebody let us know, because Chris is going to go on about that for fucking ages otherwise.
Oh yeah, I'm going to bring it out every time, and let us know. We'll shout you out and stuff.
But yeah, get in touch. But find us on Facebook with the Double Down Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter at DD Podcast Net. You can go to our website ddpodcast.net. You can find our previous episodes, our other shows, including last week's epic Who Wins podcast, where we pit Tyrion Lannister against Willow from the film Willow, not from Buffy, in a bit of a dwarf on dwarf smackdown, which has gone down pretty well. But yeah, shout us out, get in touch. We love the feedback, we love interacting with people. That's why we do this show. But yeah, until next time.
Game over.